Welcome. Today we're going to explore a dark part of history, a time when people were punished and questioned in very cruel ways. We're going to look at some of the worst tools of torture used around the world in the 1800s. We'll learn about their chilling history, the people who made them, the people who used them, and sadly, the people who were tortured with them. Let's start with a device you might think is from the Middle Ages, but it was used a lot later. The guillotine. This tall wooden frame with its heavy angled blade became a symbol of the French Revolution. It was a tool of terror, but strangely also of justice. The guillotine was meant to cause a quick, fairly painless death, unlike the awful and messy executions that came before it. A person would be held under the blade, their head held still. Then someone would pull a rope, the blade would drop, and it would quickly sever the spinal cord. While it was supposed to be a kinder way to execute someone, it was still a scary thing to watch. Big crowds would come to see these public executions, to see justice done quickly, or maybe just to see something gruesome. The guillotine wasn't only used in France, other countries used it too, even into the 1900s. It showed the power of the government, and it was a symbol of fear and control. It's hard not to think about what went through the minds of the people about to be executed. The cold, unfeeling nature of the guillotine, how quickly it worked, must have made their last moments even more terrifying. Now we travel to Germany, to a device wrapped in myths and legends, the Iron Maiden. This scary, coffin-shaped thing with sharp spikes on the inside is often seen in scary stories and historical fiction. The Iron Maiden is simple but brutal. Someone would be pushed inside and the heavy door would be shut tight. The spikes, while not meant to hit important organs, would cause terrible pain. Every move would hurt even more. Historians argue about whether the Iron Maiden was real. Some think it was made up for scary stories, but the idea of it is terrifying. Just thinking about being stuck in a metal coffin with spikes is enough to make anyone scared. Real or not, the Iron Maiden shows how cruel people can be to each other. It reminds us of a dark part of human nature. Chapter 3. Let's move from the Iron Maiden to something that stretched not just its victims, but the limits of what a person can stand, the rack. This scary thing, made of wood with ropes and pulleys, was meant to cause unbelievable pain. It would slowly and painfully pull a person's joints apart and tear their muscles. The person would be tied to the rack, their arms and legs held by ropes. The torturer would turn a handle and slowly pull the ropes tighter, stretching the person's body in opposite directions. Bones would crack, muscles would tear, and the person would scream for mercy. The rack was used to get confessions and to punish enemies of the government. It worked because it caused terrible pain without always killing the person, making the suffering last longer and breaking their spirit. Imagine being stretched on the rack, your body twisted in unnatural ways. Imagine your bones being pulled apart, the burning pain in your arms and legs. It shows just how cruel people can be. Chapter 4. Our next stop is a device that looks small and simple but caused terrible pain, the thumb screw. This simple tool with metal screws and a vice-like grip was made to crush thumbs and fingers slowly and painfully. Fingers would be placed inside and the screws would be tightened little by little, crushing the bones and nerves. The pain would be unbearable, starting as a dull ache and growing into a burning agony that shot up the arm. The thumb screw was often used to force confessions or get information. It worked because it focused intense pain on a small area, breaking the person's will. Just looking at a thumb screw is scary. The cold, hard metal, the scary screws remind us of how cruel people can be. Chapter 5. Our last stop is a device that shows how brutal the past could be. The breaking wheel, also called the Catherine wheel, this gruesome thing was designed to cause a slow and painful death, breaking a person's bones and leaving them out in the open. The person would be tied to the wheel, their arms and legs spread out. The executioner would use a heavy iron bar to break the person's bones, starting with the legs and arms and moving up the body. The person still alive would be left on display, their broken body a terrible sight for everyone to see. The breaking wheel wasn't just a way to execute someone, it was a public show, a warning to anyone who disobeyed the authorities. The victim's long suffering was meant to scare people, showing them what would happen if they didn't follow the rules. Even centuries later, seeing a breaking wheel makes you face the harsh reality of our history. How brutal this device is, the cruelty it shows, reminds us of the dark side of human nature. These devices, from the quick-killing guillotine to the simple but brutal thumbscrew, remind us of a cruel past. They show us how cruel people can be, a dark chapter in human history. Thankfully, these torture devices aren't used anymore, which is a big step forward for human rights. The horrors of the past teach us how important compassion, justice, and respect for all people are. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more history lessons.